While US backed southward Vietnam bring down in 1975, Bui Tin was down there presenting the triumph communistic polar. But following the end of the warfare, he would be a seat noir, his behalf erased of Vietnam's accounting records. It was a hot dry afternoon on April 30, 1975. In the major meat chamber of the President Castle in Saigon, General Duong Van Large Min and his men were meeting in strained silence. On the big spreadsheet down there were spectacles of water supply and bowls keeping cashew nut crazy. The dinner menu bar How Day proposed 2 major dishes, bovine sinew braised in ginseng and minnow prepared in blood sugar reed sap. But not one was consuming. Fare a few several hours up, polar Vietnamese storage tank had smashed via the gates of the castle. And Largeman had brought a letting mention on the wireless as the recent CEO of the Saigon by the government. Bui Tin was an troop interviewer and a elder lieutenant colonel in the Polar Vietnam troop at the period, 1 grade under the one he would after conduct while he defected to the Western. Yet he was the highest ranking official this while his crew was ushered in the chamber wherever the conquered CEO was waiting to transmission force. To that he answered, "Yet you include no force to transmission." He was febrile, nearly drunken on wine. Along in millions of northerners, same consumable 30-year fight for which he solidly believed was a fair, holy reason. Present is a joyous date, world has prevailed. The war is ended and all Vietnamese are victors. Just the us imperialists are the defeated, Mr. Tin said the chamber. Quick striker a pair of many decades, and Vietnamese communistic historians intentionally lowered Bui Pewter's behalf of their accountable on how historical date. The cause was easy, Mr. Tin became a dissenter in expulsion. Position war Vietnam was far of the communistic heaven how Lot had imaginary. As bonds in conventional friend China degenerated in dispute and Vietnam found himself in isolation in the planet scene, Hanoi struggled in a mutilated economics and a broken community. The mode proven incompetent of economical control and famous dissatisfaction soared. Bui Tin Thick felt the wrath of his citizens yet, possessing rising to be vice text editor-in-chief of the side cigarette holder document Nan given, he as well observed the management muscular atrophy at first brush. Guest to Paris in September 1990 to visit an yearly occasion detained by the France communistic paper El Humanite, he solved not to back to Hanoi. Not Lot had seen it upcoming, as he was deliberate a faithful communistic, one of the side elitists. This next November, we met in Paris. He said me same D submitted a application of a solitary, common individual to the communistic side via the legation in Paris, in that he pronounced his serious concerns on the economical and policy position within the nation. He requested me to speak it on the Vietnamese facility. The later head of the Vietnamese facility, Judy Stowe, specified Du Van to hold a episode of interviews in Mr. Tin about his 12-spot application, that went on to be speak above 6 weeks. Bui Tin vulnerable the mode how he charged of red tape, lack of responsibility, selfishness, corrupt practices and scam. Each Vietnamese is uneasy by the nation's this position, he told. Down there are severe economical problems, a back of rushing bloating, installation prices and everyday soil erosion of residing facility of civilian service staff and cadres. Bui Tin named for efforts to construct a really more democratic mode in the human beings at the mandrel. He as well petitioned to changing the nation's behalf of the Socialistic Republic to the more democratic Republic of Vietnam, and the communistic side to the labor side of Vietnam to get behind to the real importance of our fight. But his insights in communistic leaders' close protected individual lives were which gained him the powerful anger of formal Hanoi. Vietnamese listeners were pasted to their FET radios each overnight for such weeks, covertly fleeting about photocopied transcriptions. Bui Pewter's Next Ho Chi Minh, Memoirs of a Polar Vietnamese Colonel, 1995, dealt a strong strike to the legality of the communistic side. Before the recent day of his lifetime, Bui Tin was marked a betrayer by Vietnamese formal channels. His die was not aforementioned in any of the Vietnamese newspapers, not though such how he one day editable. Unborn to a precious household for France colonialist guideline, Bui Tin became a communistic side term at 19. His dad was a trial tangerine but after united the nationalist Viet Minh motion led by Ho Chi Minh and ultimately became president of the new domestic gathering. Thanks to his dad's shut relation in CEO Ho, Bui Tin had accessing to the side's top train. He fought by the team of the domestic character General Vion Wenjup and got injured for the renowned fight in Dien Bien Phu that ended the war versus the France. But thanks to his job as an troop reporter, he was this at lot of the nation's historical moments, consisting the leaving of U.S. military in 1973 and the intrusion of neighboring Cambodia in 1979, while Vietnamese military overturned the deadly Cambodian blush. He was ever down there in the box, cover events in the limit desire. His common accountability trips intended Bui Tin was never about while Pledge and her junior sibling were increasing up, but she insisted he was a beautiful daddy. He learned us on order and incorrect, how we should sense on the nation as a individual, she told. He favored Vietnam. More than on the Vietnam War, Mr. Pewter's breach had severe ensuing consequences for his household, particularly for the 1990s. They were surveyed and troubled. Pledge saw her dad in man for the recent period in 2015 for a open secret trip to Paris. In one of their recent phone conversations, Pledge withdrawn her dad request, "Are you irate in me for all the twists?" Her answer was, "Never. You are our dad." Such who knew Bui Tin as well knew he would not back to Vietnam as he wouldn't be capable to say out always once again. Yet he ever dreamed on back to the motherland. The electronic mail address Mr. Tin utilized the longest was Lean Bat, the behalf of his generic countryside fare external Hanoi. Back household was a distant fetched vision, how dead in him.